Hi, welcome to our bonus webinar tonight with me, Lucy Rocker, and Carrie Armstrong, who did present a webinar last month, but it was our most popular webinar that we've done so far, and it went down really well, so we asked Carrie to come back. Oh. Whoops, sorry. That was embarrassing. My phone's just like, for some reason, started ringing on my computer. Right, I'll turn it off. Anyway, so Carrie was really good, and we asked her to come back, and we're going to announce in about half an hour who was the winner of our Sexy Sober Summer Photograph competition. And before that, Carrie's going to talk about what she did to stop drinking, how she manages to stay stop drinking, and what she loves most about being a Soberista. And then she's going to hand over to me, and I'm going to go through the same things. And then throughout, please ask questions, and we'll answer as many as we can at the end. And I'll just hand you over to Carrie now. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, Lucy and Lucy's phone. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me back. I had such a good time last time. It was so much fun. And I had so many emails from you guys. Like, I'm still answering them now, a month later. So I think you're very, very dedicated, all of you here. And because it can be tricky, I do remember, I know I talked you through last time, what my story was, and it was, you know, basically 10 years of drinking, and now I've been stopped. I guess it's 10 years next year. I know it's hard to count. I don't know what my date was when I stopped drinking. Didn't even take note because I assumed that I wasn't going to do it. I assumed that yet again it was going to be like another aborted attempt, but it wasn't, so I should have took a note somewhere. So I started drinking at 15 and was really, really good at it. Oh, it was like the Usain Bolt of drinking, and I kept doing it for a decade, but I knew probably from about the age of 21, it stopped working for me, and it didn't make me happy anymore. And I didn't want to admit I had a problem, because obviously everyone I surrounded myself with was also a very heavy drinker. But I do remember saying to my boyfriend at the time, I really think I should stop drinking. I don't think this is working. And he was like, really? And then we went to the pub, forgot about it for another couple of years. And every time I tried to stop drinking, so really it was probably about 4 years of trying to stop drinking before I actually did it. I guess I would have called myself giving up drinking, because seemed like a massive sacrifice to me. And so I guess what I wanted to talk about tonight was how I did it differently, the times I did it when it didn't work. Because the one thing I always ask myself before I write anything, before I talk about anything, before I do anything to do with non-drinking, is, would this have benefited me back when I needed to know? Because I mean, I wasn't very handy with computers back then, but I did used to, you know, go on search engines and look at things like how much is normal to drink, and how do I know if I should stop drinking? Because I didn't trust myself. I thought some sign was going to happen, some angel was going to come down from on high and say, stop drinking now, that's enough. But it never is enough, is it? It's never enough. I still haven't had enough to drink now. I don't think I've ever had enough to drink in my life, probably like most of you. So when I did stop drinking, the first couple of times, I think I managed 6 weeks once. And that was major for me. That was like a major amount of time to have stopped drinking, or given up drinking rather. And I resented the hell out of it. I found it so difficult. I don't have any discipline. To this day, I still don't have any discipline, luckily, which is why I know beyond any doubt that it can't require discipline, because I'm rubbish at discipline. It can't require self-esteem, because I didn't have any of that at the time either. I fell into it the time that I did it successfully. So yeah, going back to, I don't know, 21, the first time I gave up drinking, and I would just sit in the house. I would just sit in the house, and I would avoid everyone. I would avoid friends. I would avoid fun. I would avoid enjoying myself, because I assumed it was a sacrifice. And that time it lasted a couple of weeks. When I was 24, I think I managed 6 weeks. And then I went to a pub, of course, and forgot that I was not drinking, because we all do that. We all forget that we're not drinking. The brain doesn't receive that memo, doesn't remember the horrendous things that we did the time before, and it's all forgotten. And then, where are we, 25? 25, I've been on a bender for about 6 weeks. And I remember sitting in a party and knowing, like, the veil of denial, you know, that veil that you carry around, where you vaguely have this shapeless, formless hunch that something's wrong and it's probably drinking, but it might not be. But for some reason, all my thinking at 1 second went in the right direction, and I could see unequivocally that I was going to die if I kept doing it. And that kind of hit me. It didn't hit me that I was going to die, that I cared. I actually cared. I actually thought that I might be worth saving, even though I hated the way I looked, because I did look quite different back then, even though I hated the way I felt, because I felt hungover and horrible and anxious all the time, even though I didn't know what a sober life looked like. I had no idea what sobriety was going to be like at all. I didn't think I had that much of a problem, really. I just knew that there must be something better, that these people, because there was me and there was everyone else, and everyone else seemed to have life sorted, everyone else seemed to be normal, everyone else seemed to be okay, and then there was me that just was completely effing their life up, basically. I swore a lot last time. So I used to have a conversation with my brain every single second of every day, and I'd be like, my brain would go, oh, let's go for a drink. Yeah, let's do it, as it does every time. And I'd be like, no brain, no Carrie's brain. We're not going to do that right now, or in an hour, or this evening, or whatever. My brain would go, why not? And I'd say, I don't know, because I didn't know. And I don't, as much as I, don't personally subscribe to AA's philosophy, I think it works for loads of people. I think it's a great thing now. I used to shut my mouth off because I was an idiot before, but I've watched it save people's lives now, and I know it works. And when they say they're powerless against alcohol, that's my interpretation of that now, having thought about it. I give up. I don't know why I can't do it. I'm not going to argue with my brain anymore. I'm not going to argue with my body anymore. I'm not going to argue with the world anymore. I'm not going to justify it. I'm not going to lie to myself. I don't know why I can't do it, but I can't. And I did that every second of every day for 10 months. And for some reason, after 10 months, and I do think it takes about 330 days, the veil lifted, and I thought, right, I do have an alcohol problem. Okay, what am I going to do about it? Because here's the thing. I realised that basically everything I'd been doing before was wrong, as in it was literally the polar opposite of what I needed to do. And I think that we, particularly as women, some of the pitfalls are that we get really, really specific. We get specific in general mixed up with drinking, or with being sober. We get really, really specific on what we want the outcome to be. Even though we genuinely don't know what a sober life looks like, we genuinely think that if we go, right, well, I want to be a size 8 when I'm sober, and I better have the man of my dreams when I'm sober, and work better be nice to me when I'm sober, because it's a sacrifice. We get so specific about that. And my thing is, we've all got this cripplingly low self-esteem. We can't have anything other than mediocrity if we get specific about the outcome. So for me, we need to go general about the outcome, which is what I did in retrospect, having sat and picked all this apart. But we need to go general with the outcome, but we need to get specific with our momentum. Now, what happened with me that changed me is that I was in a wheelchair for a very long time. I was housebound for a very long time in my quite early sobriety, maybe a year after. And for me, what happened was I discovered something. So personal experience taught me that learning how to walk again was not as difficult as learning how to stand. And it should be the other way around. Surely it should be the other way around, that learning how to walk, especially when your muscles have atrophied, it's painful. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy. It's not. I had to learn quite a few times. But learning how to stand is really hard. Even after I'd been walking for a few years, I found standing very, very difficult. I found standing in queues difficult. I found standing talking to people. I still get a stress response when my doorbell rings all these years later, because my first thought when I'd learned how to walk again was, how am I going to talk and stand at the same time? Where can I lean? It's so ridiculous because I can walk very well now. So for me, the power of momentum became very, very clear. I mean, literally the power of it, like the power of gravity probably would be had it stopped working for me one day, but it didn't. So I thought, right, well, momentum and drinking must be very, very important. So I thought about all the old times that I'd stopped drinking, and I thought to myself, well, every time I thought about not drinking, that was adding to old momentum. I used to visualize this snowball, because when I was little in the 80s and I watched cartoons, the snowball would get really small at the top of the hill and it would roll down, and it would get all the skis involved and, get bigger and bigger and bigger. And if I'd stood in front of a snowball like that at the beginning of the snowball, I could have stopped it. But if I try and get down the bottom of that hill and stop the snowball, it's going to run me over and hurt me, and I'll become part of that snowball. And that's what I feel like every time I see a woman trying to stop drinking without addressing momentum, or a man, or a frog, whatever you are. So I realised that what I had done in retrospect was I'd gotten very general about the outcome, going, I don't know what sobriety is going to be like, but I'm going to do it by surrendering to the fact that I don't know what it looks like and let it take it with me. I went to another side of the hill and I built a new snowball. And this new snowball was filled with new habits. It was filled with not actually thinking about drinking, because actually thinking about not drinking was adding to the old snowball. Anything I'd done in the past was part of the old snowball. And I knew the power of momentum because because walking's easier than standing. So my personal experience taught me that if I wanted to stop drinking and keep doing it, everything had to be new, the way I thought had to be new, the things I wanted had to be new. But I had to go general about the things I wanted, because my own self-esteem would have brought only mediocrity to me. For example, I didn't know how I wanted to look, because I'd always assumed that I was going to look square and a little bit plain and, you know, whatever. So I just went general with how I looked. And to be honest, I created a body by default that I never would have thought I deserved. I'm not saying I'm a supermodel, but I do all right. I'm okay. There's other things, you know, the job that I wanted, I went really general about that because I wouldn't have the self-esteem for myself on telly. Who the hell would want to watch me, you know? I did get specific about every second of every day, and I do this to this day. I get out of bed and I either speak to a woman who wants to stop drinking, speak to a client, I either go to work and be on telly, or I answer your droves of emails that you send me, because that, and I'm selfish about how I feel, I'm an emotional snob these days. Every day I start my momentum deliberately, and I want to be unstoppable by 7 in the morning. I want to feel like I am this force of nature rather than a person. I want to feel like I'm so plugged into life that things will refuse to not bow down to me, if you'll pardon all the double negatives. So momentum is so important. It's so important to not think that alcohol is this strong thing and you're this weak thing, because you can't fight anything. Even an inanimate object in a bottle, even something as silly as alcohol, you can't fight that by doing what you've always done, because you will get what you've always got. So I do things differently. I do them deliberately. I do them with passion. If I don't believe I'm worthy of something, I do not get into details about that. I don't wrestle it to the ground anymore. I leave it and I let life show me how it's going to bring me. I kind of surrender to stuff in some ways. I'm just about to fall over on my pillows. Sorry. I do things so differently. I always think that anything that I did back in the day, I do the polar opposite of that now. And my body changed and my face changed. My God, I used to look 40 when I was 21. Not even joking you. Everything in my life changed because of my thinking and because of my talking. Now I try not to complain if I don't like something, because I don't want to bring that back to me. The biggest lesson I ever learned in life came from the fact that I learned how to walk again. And I bring that one lesson into everything I do now, because it was so powerful that it changed my life. You know, I used to be an incredibly unhappy person. I used to take pride in being the most cynical person in the room, and I don't feel that way now. I don't feel old. I don't feel jaded. And none of us have to. None of us ever have to feel that way. You are not done. I do not care how old you are not done. I don't care how much you earn, you are not done. I don't care how physically restricted you are, because I promise you I couldn't even lift my own chin off my head, couldn't move my arms, couldn't move my legs just a few short years ago. There is nothing that you cannot do, and do not argue for your own limitations. Yes, it is scary when the people around you don't like you changing. Yes, it is scary when you have to stop the old momentum and pick up the new momentum. Every single second of it is worth it. And the last thing I want to say is never, ever let the idea of perfection stop you from living your life. Because I thought that being perfect in sobriety was the goal, immediate perfection. And let me tell you from experience, you do not want perfection, because perfection stifles you, it stagnates you. You sit in the house in the little glass box and you don't want anything or anyone to touch you. Successful sobriety is getting your hands dirty. Successful sobriety is making so many mistakes and picking yourself back up. It's not being seduced by this whole concept of relapse and beating yourself up over relapse or whatever. It's knowing that you can learn from what you did yesterday, that there is no such thing as day one, that every day is just another day on the journey, and that you can absolutely get to where you want to go. Because let me tell you, there is nothing special about me. I'm kind of taller than most people. That's about it, really. Talk a bit funny, but I'm not smarter than anyone else. I'm not more disciplined than anyone else. I do not have a more articulate vocabulary than anyone else. I just learned something that I couldn't unknow. So don't give up. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to get involved. Don't be afraid to look silly. And don't be afraid to think that you're worth it, because I know you are. And I'm going to hand over to Lucy now. I hope that helped.
Hi, thanks, Carrie. Well, you're so such a force of energy, Carrie. And I've been up since 5 this morning and I'm feeling a bit tired, so I'll try and wake up. I have turned my phone off now, so we won't have any more embarrassing phone interruptions. So yeah, great advice and motivational stuff from Carrie there. So I'm just going to go through the same sort of things, basically from my experiences about how I stopped and then how I stay stopped, and really just what I love about not drinking and why I really believe in this as a way of life. So I've written about it and it's been talked about so many times. I'm sure everybody watching this knows that I had a horrendous last night drinking and woke up in hospital at 3 o'clock in the morning. That is the best thing that ever happened to me. Silly as it sounds, I'm very grateful that that happened, because it gave me the kick up the bum that I needed to realise that I couldn't drink. And I had come up with so many excuses and was in denial for so long before that night, and really believed that I drank kind of like everybody else, but occasionally had nights where I drank a bit too much, and I always managed to reassure myself that it wasn't that bad until that night. But waking up in a hospital bed, covered in my own sick, with absolutely no memory at all of how I'd got there, and seeing the nurse looking at me, and I was 35 and I was a mum, and it was just the most shameful, horrible moment of my entire life. So that is, it was a great motivator. So in terms of getting stopped initially, that was the main force for me, because it just scared the crap out of me, basically. And I just thought if I drink again, I could die very easily. So yeah, it was a good thing, even though it was a horrible thing. And I think, I know a lot of people don't have such a kind of rock bottom moment as that. And I think, if you haven't, it's maybe a bit more difficult, because it's easier then to keep staying in denial. So I think you've got to find a really bad, you've got to be real with yourself about how bad it's got. And I just wrote a feature for Soberistas that we put on yesterday that kind of touched on this a bit. But because we live in this society where so many people drink to excess, it's so easy to pretend or fool yourself that you haven't actually got a drinking problem. So you've got to find a way of being really kind of honest and tough with yourself, and be able to separate your drinking from other people's. And for me, I think even though it took that hospital night to stop completely, I had known for a long, long time, if I was really honest with myself, that I didn't drink like other people. And as soon as I started drinking, I just wanted to carry on. And I didn't drink I didn't have a healthy relationship with alcohol, and I've known that for a long time. So that if you can pinpoint that, then I think that's enough reason to stop, but then staying stopped is a different matter. So time is a really, really, really big thing. And just to kind of give you a rough idea of the time it took me to feel good about not drinking, it was probably about 18 months from my last drink to feeling very happy about not drinking and being completely sorted. And in that 18 months, I saw a counsellor. I spent a lot of time crying. I went back in my history and kind of revisited so many horrible things that happened to me that I'd never dealt with as they'd happened, because I'd always drunk on them. So I went back to my divorce and people dying and really kind of horrific moments in my life that I'd never really cried about. I think when I got divorced, I only cried once. And then I just drank for the rest of the time. So yeah, I went back and processed a lot of stuff, and it was really, really painful, and it was horrible. And there were many occasions in that first year, especially, where I was absolutely desperate for a drink, and I would have done anything to get a drink down me. And I remember once, Sean, who is the other director of Soberistas, we were at my house, and I said, come on, let's go to the pub, I really want a drink. And this was about 4 months after I'd stopped drinking. And he said, all right then, go on, to test me. And I was like, right, fine, I will. I've gone 4 months without one, and I want a drink, and I'm bored, and I want a drink. And Sean went to the pub with me and got himself a Coke, and just let me go into the bar on my own and see what I did. Because he let me do that, because he didn't sort of say, don't you dare and blah, blah, blah. I had this crushing realisation at that point that if I had given in and had a drink, I would have just gone straight back to square one, and I would have had to go through all those 4 months again. And I could see that it was just a pattern that was going to be repeated over and over and over again, and it was never going to change. I was never going to be able to drink properly or normally, in inverted commas. So I didn't. I got a mineral water, and I went and sat outside and burst into tears. and that was the last time that I kind of considered drinking. But it was a long time before I felt good about it. I read a lot of books. Jason Vale, I know loads of people have read it on Soberistas, but How to Kick the Drink Easily changed my life completely. Was the driving force behind Soberistas. It made me see what a positive thing stopping drinking can be, and that it shouldn't be something that you feel bad about, grit your teeth about. It's something that you can be really pleased about. So that's a highly recommended book if you've not read it yet. And also for the first few months, I really treated myself like a bit of an invalid, I suppose. I really kind of looked after myself and felt mentally fragile. I didn't put myself in any testing situations. I made sure I kind of really looked out for myself like a friend would, really. And I didn't go to any sort of wild parties or mix with people who might be, might tempt me into drinking. I stayed in and did nice things, had baths, pampered myself a lot, treated myself to nice new clothes, and just basically just was really kind to myself, and that helped. And I did stay in a lot. I wasn't straight out there in the first few months in pubs, and I just didn't. I stayed in and I watched films and I read, and I just really took care of myself. After those first few months, when things started to settle down and become a bit more normal for me, not drinking, I started writing, and this was before Soberistas, obviously, but a few months before we launched Soberistas, I started writing my WordPress blog, which I still write now, and through that I connected with loads of people who don't drink, and that was such a massive eye-opener for me to connect with people who also have had a problem with alcohol, because I really, really thought it was just me, and I know that sounds absolutely stupid, but I really did think it was park bench alcoholic if you had a problem, and then me, and I was the only person who had this weird problem where I didn't have an off switch. So to connect with other people who were normal and nice and who also had the same problem I had was such a massive help. So that's my big, belief. That is my big belief in staying sober, staying stopped, is talking to other people and not feeling like a freak, because we are in a society where not many people don't drink. And of the people who do drink, even though I think a lot of them are alcohol dependent, most of them won't admit it. Most of them aren't brave enough to tackle it. So just owning up to it and trying to do something about it is so brave. But doing that alongside other people who are in the same boat is a big help, I think. And like Carrie said, that she kind of really accepted after a while that she was that she wouldn't ever be able to drink, and she stopped fighting it, that she was powerless to alcohol. I feel the same, but the way I've always looked at it, or certainly for the last 3 years, is that I'm allergic to alcohol. I just consider myself allergic to it, like I might be to nuts or dairy, and I know that alcohol and me don't mix and will never mix. And it doesn't matter, if I want to change my state of mind, if I want to escape my reality, that's an option I'll never touch. I just won't consider it anymore. If I've had a bad day or I'm depressed or I'm bored, I'll look to do other things, and that's become a natural response now. If I'm depressed or bored or whatever, I'll go for a run. Is my main solution. If I'm stressed, I'll go for a run. If I need a bit of time out on my own, I'll go for a run. But that's just kind of my thing that works for me, and whatever you can find that lifts you out of your reality, find it, something that you enjoy that gives you that escape, and use it. Every time you want a drink, do the other thing instead, because eventually it becomes normal, and you don't have to kind of think about it anymore. It stops being an automatic response, wanting a drink. And it definitely was an automatic response for me. I would just drink on everything, and now I don't. I just think, I've had a really crap day. I'm really stressed out. Whatever. I'll go for a run. I put my music on full blast. I run out into the countryside. I take the dog with me, and I just let off. Get rid of all my pent up feelings, and I feel a million times better. So find something that does that for you and stick to it. And I think another thing that's really important for me about staying stopped is that, and this was like a sort of de facto consequence of stopping drinking, if you like. I never expected this to happen, but stopping drinking has given me so much clarity on the world and on myself. I know myself. I see things that I never saw before. The way the world operates, the way people are, what I want from my life, how I can affect my future, how I can affect my children's futures. I've got such clarity, and it's become such a powerful thing for me, and I love it. I love being in control of my life, and I would never ever give that up for anybody or anything, certainly not alcohol. But I never expected that. When I stopped drinking, I just thought everything was going to stay the same, but I was going to just without the booze. But it hasn't. It's like the world has become a completely different place. And I was, I had my struggles. My life was not a bed of roses. And I really did think I'd just been dealt some crappy cards, really. Everything seemed to go wrong for me. But since I've stopped drinking, I just feel like I can just see things, and I can work things out, and I feel so confident in my approach in life. And I know I've got this sort of gut instinct that I really rely on, that affects everything. The friends that I have, the stuff that I do, how I spend my free time, the way I bring my kids up, what I do to relax, everything. It's just because I know myself and I know what works for me, and that clarity is so valuable and precious to me that I'd never ever let that go. And I think that's something really, really worth hanging on to, that you might not get it straight away, but it will come. And when you get it, that's when the switch is flicked, I think, and it becomes so much easier to stay not drinking. And just finally, before we announce the winner of our competition, I just wanted to say a few points about what I love about being a Soberista, because for me this isn't, it never was, since I set up the site, it's never been about just kind of gritting our teeth and let's all just get together and try really hard not to drink because it's hard enough and we've got to do it. It's not about that. It's about believing in not drinking as a way of life and really enjoying it, because it is an amazing thing to do, not just for yourself but for your family, and just giving yourself the best possible chance at life and fulfilling your potential and achieving and experiencing so much and being able to remember everything that you do and knowing that you've made the right choices in life and not having those awful regrets that you have when you drink too much. It's such a good way to live. So I think it's really important to remind yourself that this is, for me, people who stop drinking, who've had a problem with drinking, we're kind of like the ones in the know. We've kind of worked it out. The penny's dropped, and we're in a bit of a secret club, really. Kind of, we know what we can achieve in life, and people who carry on drinking, they've not really seen it, and they're wasting their life. So the things I've really found about being a Soberista that for me is just, there's no turning back. It's the control and the fact that I've learned to like myself. I've got the same characteristics that I had when I drank, but they were magnified and twisted when I drank and became horrible things that weren't nice. I am a bit bolshy and I'm quite forceful, but that was argumentative and arsey, and I was always getting into drunken rows with people, and I was just a pain in the backside. But now I like that side of myself. It's just assertive and confident, and I'm a bit of a go-getter. I'm not frightened by anything. I appreciate everything, really, really, like the tiny minutiae in my life. I really appreciate it. I love, like this morning, went for a run really early and there was nobody about, and it was just really peaceful. The trees are all green, and it was just this beautiful hour out on my own in the countryside listening to my favourite music, and it was brilliant. There was no regrets, no hangover that I was trying to battle through. It was just a lovely, lovely time on my own, and I really appreciate it. And I appreciate everything now. There's no day passes me by where I don't just think, God, I'm so lucky, and I've got such a lovely family. And I think the gratitude that you feel for small things when you don't have that booze in your system is really lovely. And the other thing, even though it was very difficult at first, is that I've learnt to really love feeling my emotions, and I couldn't sit with my emotions at all when I first stopped drinking. Even the good emotions, even sort of, when I was happy or excited, it was too much and I didn't like it. I was so used to numbing them. But I've really got used to it now, and I feel very human, and in tune with myself, and that clarity and feeling my emotions is it's impossible when you drink. You don't have that. And I think, that is living properly. It's being in tune to yourself as a human being. So all those things for me are deal breakers with booze. You can't have those things and drink, and they're worth far more to me now than any crappy bottle of wine. So yeah, that's my take on being a Soberista. And now we've got loads of questions, by the way. So just a reminder, if you've got a question, please type into the box and we'll go through them at the end. But before we do, we're going to just show you a collection of the photos that were sent in, the finalists. These were all sent in where we asked you to send us your interpretation of Sexy Sober Summer and just to show us what a good time you were having without alcohol. So these are our favourites. I think we're just going to scroll through them now. Hopefully, yeah, there we go. And we've got a few. I think there's a handful, but they basically just showed just that vibrancy and appreciation of life. There's Carrie having her makeup done. And just the fact that you don't have to hide inside and feel sorry for yourself because you can't drink anymore, but get out there and enjoy yourself. And yeah, and I think we got that. We saw some lovely photos, and we have picked a winner, which we will get to in a minute. I should say as well, thank you to everybody who sent these pictures in, because we were really overwhelmed by the response we got, and it just sometimes when you sort of conducting something like Soberistas via the computer, it's like you don't actually meet, you're not meeting each other in real life, and you wonder is everybody actually doing this? Are people getting out there and enjoying themselves without booze? And what we saw from these photos was yes. People are, and it was just so lovely to see. So, Carrie, before we get to the winner,
yeah,
did you want to say anything about those photos?
I love them. They made me cry. Lucy and I were each other one night going, "Oh my God, can you believe these?" I was absolutely gobsmacked. I think you're so brave. I mean, obviously, I've got to be honest, I didn't talk about being sober for the first 7 years of sobriety, which is a very long time. So I certainly wouldn't have put up selfies of myself. I wouldn't have known how to do that, like technically and, spiritually. But I just think you're beyond fabulous. I loved it. I loved the fact that you wanted to connect, and I thought that you looked amazing. I felt really privileged that you let us into your summers, and yeah, it made us cry. So I thought you were all fabulous. It was a hard decision to make, but we did pick a lovely one.
We did pick a winner, and the prize, I should just remind people if you didn't see what the prize was, but it's our Virgin Experience Days afternoon tea and spa treatment for 2 in a Bannatyne's gym. So the very lucky winner is, I'm not going to say the name just in case this person doesn't want to be revealed to all, but can we show the photo of the winner? I'm just waiting for Sean, who is supposed to be flicking through these photos and showing us our winner now.
I don't even know who it is. I just really liked it.
Yeah, well, I know who it is. The person who it is who sent this photo in, I shall be sending a message.
Right.
So, but the winner was, I think we're going to it now. It was the picture, that one. There, we just passed it, sure. Yep. It was the two ladies looking really glamorous in there, I think at a wedding, leaning over a fish pond. And we liked it because we thought it was really representative of kind of the relationship that you can have with your kids once you've stopped drinking, and that kind of closeness and enjoying a really simple thing, and appreciating, the smaller things in life, looking fantastic, and also not falling into the fish pond and ruining your lovely dress because you've got too much to drink. So yes, well done, and thank you again to everybody who sent those pictures in, because they were fantastic, and that's the winner, and I will be contacting you, winning person, after this webinar. Okay, so we've got a few questions, and
I can't see them.
Okay, well I'll read them, and then you can give your input, Carrie, where.
Thank you.
Yeah, where you feel like you want to or can. So the first one: do you think people who have never drunk alcohol feel as good as we do when we give up, because it's almost like dying and then realizing you have to live every day as if it's the last?
I feel like I've never drank alcohol. Literally, I feel at the point now where I am so indifferent to it that I don't really, unless I'm talking about it or writing about it, and even then I don't emotionally involve myself in it. I don't remember the person really who did it. I remember bits and pieces, but I feel like a person who's never drank before. I don't feel like a person who carries around this label of oh, I have this horrendous problem, or it had me, or whatever. I genuinely feel like a non-drinker, and most people, when I say I don't drink, unless they Google me, then I'm screwed. They assume that I've never drank, and if they want to, it's not because I believe there's a stigma, because I talk about it a great deal. I've never experienced any sort of stigma, ever. Not at work, not in relationships. Anything that people think limits them. Nobody's ever had an issue with the fact that I don't drink or that I had an alcohol problem. But I don't care how they feel. I only care how I feel, and I feel like a non-drinker. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I've definitely kind of, I feel a distance now between me and that drunk, what I was when I drank, but it's still there. I can still, it was 4.5 years ago when I stopped, but I can still remember quite clearly the horrific sort of low self-esteem, and I can remember very clearly that awful feeling in the morning when you woke up and you couldn't remember what you'd done. I do remember that very, very clearly, and I think that will stay with me. And I think, yes, for me, I definitely appreciate life more because of what I did. But I drank for a lot longer than Carrie. I started drinking at 13 and I didn't stop till I was 35, so it was 22 years. So it was all my formative years and all my adulthood.
I don't think it's, honestly though, I don't think it's to do with I think it's to do with how much you change.
Yeah.
I do. I think that even if I drank for 40 years, and it's not that I still know how an alcoholic's mind works. I still know all the lies I told myself. What it's like for me is I can see my behaviour and I can see it very clearly, but it's from a bird's eye view. So
you've just seen it objectively.
Yeah, I can, and I know how alcoholics work. And I did a Royal Hangover. I never talked about. Sorry, I feel like I'm getting into it. I'll get into Royal Hangover another time. I never talked about it. I wrote about it for a long time, but the first time I talked about it was for a documentary. Note to all you people out there: talk about it first before you go and make a documentary. Really practice it first, because I got quite upset after that, and I thought, oh my goodness, I still haven't seen the documentary. Lucy has. I haven't.
I've seen it. It was really good.
You guys should watch it because it's quite nice.
No, I think a lot of people have watched it on Soberistas. It's
don't talk about that. Talk about that shit first and go to the document. But I don't. I have a level of appreciation now that has fuck all to do with drinking and everything to do with being alive. I appreciate that, but then again, I was disabled for a long time, so
yeah. And I think as well, you've had 10. Is it 10 years since you stopped drinking?
Probably next year it is, I think.
But yeah, so nearly 10 years. So you've had over double the time off alcohol than I have. So that's going to make a difference.
But I don't count. But I don't tend to count. So It doesn't. I think once you're stopped, you're stopped. I think people who know they're stopped after a week. I knew I was stopped after 10 months. I absolutely knew I stopped, and then I kind of stopped counting. It's only because I'm 35 now that I know it's been a decade. So
yeah.
Well, Carrie, we should answer these questions faster, shouldn't we? Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Let me go to the next one.
Lucy and I disagree about almost everything. That's why we work together, isn't it, Lucy?
But it's good. It's good because it's two different perspectives, and we've both managed to stop drinking and stay stopped and feel good about it. So it's kind of, we're covering all bases. But we do like each other. Don't make it sound.
We love each other. Yeah. Like each other.
Right. Okay. So I'm struggling when I go out with friends to enjoy myself and feel like a bore because they all drink. So can I ask you how you found it when peeps are almost always trying to tempt you to go on have a drink? Okay, well, I'll go first with that then, because I really kind of actively stopped. I'm not advising you to kind of cut all ties with all the people that you love in your life, but I did make a choice to stop hanging around with the people in my life who were heavy drinkers. And I realised, quite quickly after I stopped drinking, that the main glue in those friendships was booze. I liked going out with people who got pissed because it made me, it detracted from my drinking. And I think naturally then, as well as kind of making a conscious choice to get rid of those people, I started gravitating towards people who didn't drink or who didn't drink problematically. And I also started doing other things in my social life. So I started going to the theatre and the cinema and going out for meals and going for walks in the summer, kind of like when it doesn't go dark till later, just a nice evening stroll. I don't go to pubs. And at first when I stopped drinking, I did go to pubs, but only if it was like a pub quiz or something. Now I don't go to pubs at all. And I know some people who stop drinking go to pubs and they really like it, they're fine with it. And it's not because I'd find it difficult to not drink, it's just because I don't like being around alcohol. And I just find it quite abhorrent now. I don't like people getting so blotto that, trying to kind of escape the reality. It upsets me a bit. I think, obviously because of my experiences, I don't sit comfortably around people who are getting drunk. So I don't really do that. But I think in terms of you feeling boring around your friends, that's definitely a state of mind, and you've got to get a grip on that, because there's people who drink heavily are boring. You're boring when you're drunk. You talk, you repeat yourself, you slur your words, you drone on, you've got no kind of sensitivity to other people, including other people in the conversation, so you dominate. People who don't drink are much more interesting, and I really, really believe that. I've found people who, Arthur Corty, case in point, who's the director of A Royal Hangover, amazing. He's like 27, I think, 28, and he's a producer of documentaries. He's never drunk. Not because he had a problem with it, just because he didn't see the point in it. And he's achieved so much, and he's such an interesting bloke, and he's done all these films, and he's just a lovely person to talk to. Far more interesting than most of the people I knew who got pissed all the time and just sat in pubs every night getting drunk. So that's, to me, it's a state of mind. It's about being proud of not drinking and trying to get over that stigma that exists in this society about people who don't drink, because it's bollocks, quite frankly. People who don't drink are interesting, far more interesting than people who are drunk. But yeah, I would also advise perhaps varying your social life a little bit if you are hanging around a lot with people who are out getting drunk, because it's boring. Okay, next question. I'm just reading through comments. Some of them are questions, some of them are comments. So, okay, you mentioned 18 months of having counselling. Could you tell me how you found the right counsellor? I'm in touch with our local NHS substance abuse service. They're really nice, but I'm afraid I find the psychology a bit simplistic. Okay, well, I was working at Sheffield Hallam University when I stopped drinking, and they offered counselling free to students and staff. And when I stopped drinking, I got in touch with them and was just very, very lucky that I got to see a cognitive behavioural therapist free for 6 weeks, who was absolutely brilliant. And the CBT particularly, I think, is really, really helpful. For me, it was really helpful. It wasn't just a therapist who sat there and kind of nodded and it wasn't that. It was, okay, when you feel like this, do this. And he taught me how to cope with really negative things, taught me how to deal with regret and guilt, and taught me how to kind of deal with all my anxiety and confidence issues that had led me to drinking in the first place. So he was fantastic. So on just personally what worked for me, I would definitely recommend a cognitive behavioural therapist. And I know there's like counselling directories now on the internet that you can go to, and that you can look at rather, and just type in your postcode and it'll throw up a load of therapists in your area with ratings from people to say, you know, what they thought of them and what their specialities are. So that might be worth looking at. And I got mine free, like I say, but you know, you may have to pay, I think kind of 40-50 quid an hour is like the going rate for a therapist. But if you have 6 sessions at 300 quid, I used to spend 300 quid a month on booze easily. And it was so well worth it, me going to see that counsellor. I would highly recommend it as just a kickstart, you know, to look at why you've drunk heavily. I mean, obviously alcohol's addictive, but there are underlying reasons, and for me a big underlying reason was my self-confidence and really cripplingly low self-esteem. So I had to work on that, and that therapist really helped me do that. So I would recommend it, and maybe just go online and look for a therapist in your area. Carrie, do you have anything to say on that?
Not really, because I don't really. For me, because Lucy and I go for very different approaches to get the same result, which is just, you know, proof that everything works. I didn't go see a counsellor. I never would, because I personally, not you, just me, I believe that not talking about alcohol, talking about not drinking is the same as drinking, as far as I'm concerned, or was concerned. So if it works for you, fantastic. Personally, I'd rather go spend money on hang gliding. I'd rather spend the money on dresses. I'd rather spend the money on learning a new language. I'd rather spend it on travelling. For me, any form of recovery has to be successful if you take the onus off talking about drinking or not drinking and putting it onto new things. And I would pay someone to teach me a new skill 1,000 times before I pay someone to sit and talk about alcohol, because it's over, it's done, as far as I'm concerned. And I felt that very strongly. I need to really go back to the first question and answer that very, very, very quickly. I, again, have a completely different approach to Lucy. So I would say it's not what you say. Going back to the friends in the pub, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. They're responding to the fact that you're basically apologising for not drinking. You get in there and you look them in the eye and you say, I'm not drinking tonight. You don't need to know that you're not drinking forever. I always say lie to people. Tell them you've got a medical problem. Tell them you've got an ear infection. Tell them that you've got a stomach ulcer. It kind of implies executive stress, and they get a bit intimidated that you're working harder than they are. I would say my doctor said I can't drink right now. Use your hormones as an excuse. People don't care about that. They don't care if you're not drinking. They care if you find them interesting when they are drinking. You know what I mean? So, because we kind of sense that. I hang around with people who do drink heavily. I hang around with people who are indifferent to alcohol. I tend to not hang around with non-drinkers. I don't mind if they're in AA, because then at least we kind of speak the same language, shorthand. I work with athletes, and athletes can't really, for the most part, drink heavily, so that's a thing. I do go to pubs and clubs. You will never find me in a Wetherspoons. You will never find me in a grim local. That's where I used to spend my time. I go to very nice places. I feel you should invest heavily in sobriety. I feel that anyone that says to me, I'm saving so much money in sobriety, in my case, you're doing it wrong. That's how I feel. I mean, people may disagree with me. I think we need to invest in beautiful places. I dress up lovely. I go to lovely nightclubs. I go to clubs. I drink mocktails. I probably spend more now than I ever used to spend on pints of Stella, or, you know, other brands are available. And to me, it's a real investment. There's an evolution that comes with it. So you will find yourself naturally gravitating less towards these people. When you're firm in your sobriety, you will come back to them. You will start hanging around with them, and you'll go do different things. I'm amazed now. The handful of people that I kept in my life that weren't human props that I used to use for drinking, the ones who were there from when I was little and stuck by me irrespective of my drinking, I find things to do with them that aren't drinking, and life will just show you that. It's about that momentum again. So just let it sort itself out. Again, if you're used to this whole hopping on and off the drinking wagon, they're probably not taking you very seriously. They're probably thinking, oh God, again, this new obsession, and they're going to talk about you not drinking. So don't lie to them, pretend you're on medication, get comfortable with it, go do something else, and then go somewhere beautiful with them. And that's how I feel about it.
Okay, good. Yeah, and it's nice to cover. No, it's really nice to. I think it's really helpful to have more than one idea about, you know, answering the question anyway, isn't it? Don't you? Because it isn't. I really, really believe that as well. It's like not one size fits all. And
do you know what? There's something so drinky about. Oh, we better be in this category, because when we're drinking, we judge people. So not drinking is like a holistic thing.
Yeah, and I've written books about stopping drinking. And they are just what's worked for me, you know. But I'm a bit weird, you know. I've got my little flaws. So
what we never talk about, like you and I, for example, we don't talk about. We
it's
don't
not
talk
going to
about
work for
alcohol.
anybody else. You know, I mean, it might
Yeah.
not work for you. You might be a completely different personality to me, and it might not work for you. So all I've ever said is, you know, this is what worked for me, but you've got to work it out for yourself. And I think, you know, the key to doing that is, first and foremost, simple as it sounds, just not drinking for a sufficiently long time. So, you know, give yourself that 2 or 3 months, and just look at it as 2 or 3 months out of your life, you know. And in that time, work out who you are, work out what it is that's going to keep you, you know, happy and not bored and able to build your self-esteem up again, and all of that. And everybody's different. So what Carrie does is fantastic, and it totally works for her, and she's a great advert for not drinking. She's done it for 10 years and she looks marvellous. But, you know, I don't go out, and I wouldn't go to nightclubs. It's not my thing. But I am nearly 40, so I've got a few years on you, Carrie.
I know, man.
I hope you're in my slippers.
Yeah,
right, okay. Another question. I just saw another one. Right. I'm stuck in a cycle of having a few weeks off and then drinking again. I just get so bored of being sober. Can you give me some advice on how to break this? Do you want to go first with that one, Carrie?
Yes, it's back to this whole, you get yourself into it, because not drinking is your new drinking now. It's this foregone conclusion. Now, what I find personally, and Lucy completely disagrees with me here, and that's fine, that's why we love each other, is that I personally don't believe you're just getting into a cycle of not drinking. I would bet the farm on the fact that you will restrict your eating, you'll become fixated with healthy eating, you will get obsessed with possibly the gym or whatever, and you will get yourself into a place of such restriction on every single level and of isolation that you build yourself into this prison that you feel the need to just break out of. And sobriety is not a prison. And any time I hear particularly a woman, not exclusively, but particularly a woman, say to me, I manage a few weeks and then I don't, I think to myself, you're not taking care of new momentum, you're isolating yourself and you're restricting your food intake, and you're making yourself so miserable that you associate alcohol with relief. So that's what I feel that you're in now, and I think it's very good news that you get into this cycle, because there's a comfortable familiarity to it. And basically my advice would be, generally, I never give specific advice without having talked to someone. If you want to email me, do so at lifeafterthechair@hotmail.com. Anyone can do that, it doesn't matter. And what I would say generally is that you need to do the polar opposite of everything you're doing once you're in that cycle. So take the reins off, stop restricting your eating, stop restricting your socializing, get out there and do new things, and stop thinking about not drinking. And that's a start. But if you want to email me, I can certainly give you more specific tips. But I think I'm right about the food thing. Thank you, Lucy.
Okay, great. Somebody's written that, Carrie, you talk really fast.
I do, because I'm a Geordie, and plus I've got loads to say. So you can watch
but
on
also,
right?
somebody else has written that they've just watched The Royal Hangover and it was amazing. Yeah, it's a brilliant film, and I think, you know, in my like armory now, if I'd just stopped drinking, A Royal Hangover and then Jason Vale's book, those two things together will really work quite dramatically and quickly at changing your mindset about booze and seeing it for what it is, because, you know, it is a poison if you're out of control with it. And I suppose that's the thing to mention. If you're only having 2 glasses of wine a week and you don't miss it at all when you don't have it, fair enough, it's not a poison necessarily. But when you drink like I used to drink, and how I imagine most people on Soberistas used to drink, it is, you know, nasty stuff, and it causes an awful lot of damage. So those two things together would probably rewire your brain quite quickly and get you thinking along different lines, which is very helpful.
I haven't watched that, and I haven't read that. I'm a terrible Soberista.
Jason Vale's book, I'm telling you, it's just changed my life. I was so pleased to have read that book. Somebody's put, and this is a really difficult question, because I've never been in this position, but the question is, if the person who you socialise with who gets pissed is your husband of 25 years, you can't distance yourself from that. So how do you deal with these occasional drunken nights? I hate it. Carrie?
No, I'm honestly I know people will say that, you know what, I am single, and I don't, in that case, I shouldn't be giving advice on this. This is so much more than this question is. I get this. This is probably one of my most common questions. I don't know about you, Lucy. And the thing is, this did not just happen to you. You created this, and that's really incredibly good news. And I'm going to even slow down for this one. That's how important this one is. This did not happen to you You guys created this dynamic. Now, I think that people in relationships who want to stop drinking have the advantage over single people, because you have that momentum in your face all day, every day. And let me tell you, if you crack that scenario with your husband, you can do it with the outside world. What I think you're really saying is, will it affect my marriage if I stop drinking? Because let's face it, any single one of us can stop doing a thing. To me, this should not ruin your life. This should not make you frightened. This should not make you worried. It's no more significant than if I stop biting my nails. My husband and I bite our nails together. What will happen if we stop doing that? You'll find something else to do together. His drinking does not depend on you. However, if you feel like your marriage, you will face up to the fact that you don't like your marriage. If you face up to the fact that maybe you're a bit bored, you'll quickly face up to whatever it is the drinking is masking. And yeah, that can be a bit scary, but it is not the end of the world. I would never suggest to anyone changing their circumstances, because what will happen is, if you react to a circumstance straight away, say you leave your husband because you get sober and you think, oh my god, this is horrendous, guaranteed if you don't do the inner work to change that momentum, whether, like Lucy says, you go see a counsellor, whether you're like me and you go learn how to hang glide and just, love your life and all that sort of business. I can't hang glide. It's all to do with feeling yourself as a person and being in love with yourself. The relationship with your husband is not the relationship that you should be worried about right now. The relationship with yourself is the relationship that you should be really, really concerned with. And if you fix that relationship with yourself, if you start dating yourself, if you start being kind to yourself, if you start being strong in the face of all momentum by building new momentum, it doesn't actually matter whether your marriage works, because finally you'll be having a dependent relationship with the right person. Do you see what I mean? It doesn't matter what you guys do together in the evenings. And yes, you absolutely can learn to cultivate a brand new skill by paying attention to what you do rather than reacting to what he does. And we are all incredible reactors when we drink. We react to things that don't even happen. We react to things that might happen in the future. We especially obsessed about things and react to them that happened in the past. We rarely are just feeling the here and now. So I would say, again, if you want to email me, lifeafterthechair@hotmail.com, of course we can go into that in more detail, but what you think is the problem here isn't the actual problem. That's what I'm going to say. Did that make any sense, Lucy?
Yeah, I think that's really good advice as well, about especially the time thing, just to not make any knee-jerk reactions. I don't know how long the person who's written that question, I don't know how long you've not been drinking for, but
I would say they're still drinking. I'd say there's a cycle of it going on. I don't think
okay. I've changed like beyond recognition since I stopped drinking. Well, not completely beyond recognition, but I'm such a more confident together person who's so much more in tune with herself, and I've got so much more self-awareness than I ever had when I was a drinker. So don't wait it out, like give it a long time, like at least a year of not drinking to fully recover and fully get to know yourself and get that clarity that comes with not drinking before you make any crazy decisions. And
he's not going to going to make any crazy
and the thing is as well,
he'll make a lot of noise.
Yeah, but the other thing to consider, I think, as well, is that once you've stopped drinking and you've got a bit of time behind you sober, you are able to deal with challenges in life so much better than when you drink. And when I drank, I just used to burst into tears at everything. I'd have tantrums and ring my mum and dad up and, oh my god, this has happened, and I was just such a drama queen. I couldn't cope with anything. And now I just get on with things, and nothing ruffles me as much as it anywhere near as much as it used to when I was a drinker. So that's something to bear in mind. You'll feel stronger and better equipped to make a decision about your relationship and how best to handle that situation once you stop drinking.
Also, some people, what they say a lot is, oh, well, they're not actually that annoyed with the fact that I'm not drinking. It's the fact that I keep announcing that I'm not drinking and then going back on it. So I would always say, don't make a big thing of it. Don't make this big enough, because you're not keeping yourself
Carrie,
accountable.
The lady who asked that question has just added another comment to say that she's been sober for 10 months.
Oh,
so
that's good.
Yeah.
In that case, you need to change your habit.
Yeah, so I would, and maybe one other thing I don't know if your husband would be up for this, but considering that you have been sober for 10 months, so you've obviously got that sort of clarity that comes with a decent stretch of not drinking, maybe consider going to relationship counselling and talking about your feelings about your husband's drinking, and see if you could kind of reach a bit of an understanding that way. It might help just to get a third person involved and get a bit of communication going, because it's very difficult to talk to somebody rationally who's getting pissed a lot because they don't really. Yeah, I think
yeah.
when you've got the clarity of not drinking and they haven't, you're kind of on different wavelengths, and it's hard to understand each other. So it might help going to see a relationship counsellor if you can do that. And good luck with it.
One more tiny thing.
Go on.
Tiny thing.
Yeah.
I still think that you're putting too much emphasis on how he feels and reacting to what he's doing, even though 10 months is amazing. And I'm terribly sorry if I, thought that otherwise, but if I came across otherwise, but you're still paying far too much attention, unless he's, physically doing anything terrible, and I hope he's not. It's not affecting you. It doesn't have to affect you. There's a limiting belief here that his behaviour actually, or that his words actually have to affect you, and they don't. And that's something that once you get a handle on, that shows up successful sobriety irrespective of relationship status. So I would say ignore it and change the momentum of that as well. That's really important. But I'm done now.
Okay. Just another thing somebody said is a royal hangover on YouTube. If you go on Soberistas and look under the archived feature articles, there's a couple on there that I wrote about the royal hangover, our royal hangover, sorry. And on both of those is a link to the film. So yeah, if you go onto Soberistas and put in the search box a royal hangover, you'll find it through there, and it's definitely well worth the watch. Good film.
Allegedly. It
is, and there is a strange woman in it called Carrie Armstrong, but apart from her, it's really good.
Talks really
I'm
fast.
only kidding. I'm only joking.
One day I'll watch it. I'll watch it.
No, it's really good. It's really good. I think we've got through all the questions, but there's loads of comments.
Are they nice comments?
Yes, they're all nice comments. And I think, everybody's we're all on the same wavelength. Everybody goes through a similar journey, I think, in the first few months, and the same struggles. To me, it's like the power is so massive for that, just, knowing that there's other people out there, and to be able to access people who are at different stages of the journey who can reassure you that those stages will only last, so long, and then you'll move on to another stage. And to find so many different people who have all been through it is really great, and it helps me, I have to say. It does really help me. I don't think I'd be quite so strong in my sobriety if I wasn't constantly sort of reading what I read on Soberistas. It's very reassuring to know that we're all in this together. Really, it's nice. Kind of nice. It's nice. We wish we hadn't gone through all the struggles to get here, but you know what I mean.
Well, the nice thing about that is that you save other people from having to do it as long, because my God, I took the long way around. I mean, I really did it in ways that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy before I nailed it, and now I do it so easily. But everything that I do, because I don't, this isn't my main job. My main job is nothing like this, but I was always very aware that I needed to have a visible platform to be a sober person. I don't preach about it when I'm at work. By God, I work in sports. You don't go in and start talking about drink. You talk about football. But the fact that I don't like to push things on people, and they can come and find you if they want you. And, like you said, there's this resource that you guys can come and have this community together, that you don't make people, you don't shove it down people's throats. They can take it or leave it if they want it. And there's a power to that. There's a power of being as quiet as I get, example of successful sobriety. The visual examples, you can't buy that. You can't buy, watching someone. I wish I'd had it. And I think as long as we keep being what we never had, people who can take these skills and don't take 5 years to do it badly, I think that we really need to keep helping each other, and I think Soberistas is lovely for that. I think you're all very brave. Yeah,
agreed. One more person has just asked about what do you think about going to Alcoholics Anonymous. So I'll make that the last question. I'll just say, personally, again, it's always just personal. I'm not a doctor, I'm not an expert, and I'm not a counsellor or anything. The only experience I've got is my own. But I never went to AA, and the things that put me off AA were, the big one, I didn't think I was an alcoholic. Whether that's me being in denial or whether I'm not an alcoholic. Who knows what an alcoholic is? I don't really. I kind of had in my mind an alcoholic was somebody who was physically dependent on alcohol, who had to have a drink the moment they woke up, who shook if they didn't have a drink, and that was never me. But I was definitely dependent on alcohol. I really needed it, I craved it, and I drank far too much of it. But I didn't really, that word, it didn't really gel with me. So that was the big barrier for me. But the second one was that I'm an atheist, and I knew that a lot of the 12 steps are related to the higher power and finding, handing over really your kind of yourself really to a higher power to get you better. And for me, I kind of felt like I had to do it for myself. I'm not religious anyway, but I couldn't find any higher power in anything else. I know people say it doesn't have to be God, but I couldn't put my wellness into the hands of somebody else. I had to do it for myself, and I really kind of saw that there were things about me that led me to heavy drinking, like low self-esteem, the cycle that I was in of bad relationships and low self-confidence and stuff, and I needed to get those things sorted. It wasn't about the drink really for me, it was about those things, and once I'd got those things resolved, the drink stopped being the cravings, to escape my reality just disappeared over time. I didn't want to do that. I don't want to do that anymore because I'm happy with myself. So I took charge of my situation and I did it myself. And I didn't kind of get that from AA, that's what happens. But on the plus side, I think two things that I think are really good about AA is the mentor thing and the group community thing. And both of those things are on Soberistas. The mentor thing, it sort of happens just by default. I think you kind of just get chatting to people who you relate to who've been sober longer than you have. Who can guide you and support you a bit. But the community thing, the friendship and just talking to other people who understand you and really get you, you can get that from Soberistas. So those things about AA, I totally think, that's good. I get that. The religion thing, the fact that you have to say you're an alcoholic, I'm not so happy about that. I prefer to call myself a Soberista and to aspire to being better than I was. I don't want to dwell in the past and keep referring to myself as an alcoholic, and I'm still not entirely sure whether I was one anyway. So that's my take on it. But Carrie, do you have anything to say on AA?
I do, because I used to mouth off, because I've got a big gob, I used to mouth off about AA a lot. I did. I used to, and I had platforms. People gave me platforms to shout my mouth about these things, and I used to be kind of anti-AA. I believe in everything. I don't know if that's the opposite of an atheist, but I believe in absolutely everything. It's quite hard to argue with a person that believes in everything, and as it turns out. But I have watched AA save some people that I love. Oh, I love some people that I'd die without, really, and I've watched them blossom because of AA, so I could never knock it. I think it's an incredible network, and it's been around for a long time. I think that we assume a lot of knowledge that comes from AA that possibly isn't so relevant for some, maybe for some women or whatever. I don't care if people call me an alcoholic or not. It stopped being relevant when I stopped drinking, so that's not something that I care about. But I personally, look, I do one-on-one sessions for a very small minority of women. I'm a TV presenter, I'm not a medical expert, I'm not a behavioural expert, I'm not a therapist. But if people want to learn how to stop drinking, then a very small minority of women I can do one-on-one session with. Tiny. I turn away about 60% of women, and a lot of the time I do that, it's because I don't think they've tried enough options, because my way is weird. It is weird. So, and plus it's not what I do for a living, so I can't dedicate myself to it full time. So a lot of women will reach out to me and I'll always give you some form of answer. I really, really will answer every email. However, I feel that you have to try. I don't think you should suffer through therapies that don't work for you, but you must try enough to know that you've tried enough. Do you see what I mean? So, and everything works for someone. So there is nothing to be gained by not going to AA. That's my attitude these days.
Yeah, I think that's really everything. Yeah, that's worth mentioning, I think, because I was put off AA because of what I just mentioned, so I never went. And I was lucky enough that I managed to stop drinking by myself, and I just did it through kind of reading books and talking to friends who'd stopped drinking and just, doing other things. And it worked, going to see a counsellor and stuff. But if I hadn't managed to do all of those things, maybe I would have ended up going to AA at some point, because I think, at the end of the day, it's just whatever works. And if, like Carrie said, if you don't try it, you don't know. So it's probably, if other things aren't working for you, then give it a go. And if it
Get
works,
your hands dirty.
good.
Don't be.
If it doesn't, don't keep going.
Yeah, don't be afraid of like getting your hands dirty and trying things that don't work. We spend so much time trying to be perfect and worrying about what other people think of us. Perfection kills. Please don't think perfection doesn't kill, because it's a bigger killer than drinking at the end of the day.
Yeah. But also, and I'll just finish on this. I don't know if you want to just say a few last words, Carrie, afterwards. But I think the thought, what was it, Jerry Springer's thought of the day? Was it?
Final thought.
Yeah, Jerry's final thought. This is Lucy's final thought. I was addicted to alcohol. Well, definitely dependent on alcohol. But the thing that kept me drinking was things about myself that I didn't like, and that I was bored and that I wasn't fulfilled and that I had low self-esteem. And I've kind of systematically I've gone through all those things and I've corrected them, and I've worked on myself really, really hard, and I make sure that I keep my life in a place now that where I'm happy and I'm fulfilled, so I don't feel the urges to escape it anymore. So I would say that, think about, once you've kind of got through the first 2 or 3 months and you've got that physical kind of craving, the real nasty early stages of craving out the way, look at your life, look at what it is about your life that's making you unhappy. Are you bored? Are you lonely? Are you unfulfilled in your job? Do you not really like your husband? Whatever it is, look at those things and address them, and be really kind of ruthless and work on yourself, and just go through them systematically and get them ticked off and get them sorted. And over time, those things will have a massive, massive effect on your self-esteem and the way you regard life, and they will change how much you want to escape your life. And hopefully, you won't want to escape it anymore. I don't want to escape my life anymore because I've changed everything about it that I didn't like. So that's Lucy's final thought. Carrie?
I do. I'll be really, really brief, I promise. I'll talk slower. I cannot underestimate finding role models. Because we're all kind of overgrown teenage girls at first. We really are, or boys. And finding an actual template. You won't want their life. The people who I started off admiring and wanted to be like when I grew up, I don't want their life now. I've surpassed any life that I thought I could have, or even like that my role models had, to be honest. I get up and I can't believe this is my life. Are you frigging kidding me? And find a role model and pester them and get advice from them. Don't be afraid to ask for advice. Don't be afraid to ask for tips. Don't be too proud. Really, 50% of what they'll tell you won't work. The throwaway comments they make might change your life, but how will you know unless you get out there? Really start investing in your sobriety. Really start investing in the luxury of not drinking, because that's how we like ourselves, and that's how we build a relationship with ourselves. Don't be afraid to try things that don't seem like they have nothing to do with drinking, because guaranteed everything I do now has nothing to do with not drinking, if you get what I mean. So find role models and ask them questions. If you see someone that has the life you want, pursue that person and ask them. If you see someone that's talking the talk but doesn't have the life you want, use your common sense and step away from that person. And that's my final thought. And you can do it, because good Lord, if we can do it, anyone can. Can't they, Lucy?
Yes. Agreed. Yeah, definitely. So, okay, we'll call it a night there, I think, because we've been waffling on for ages, but I hope that was helpful.
I hope so.
Harry's email address, lifeafterthechair
@hotmail.com, because I refuse to move to Gmail. Life after the chair, obviously, used to be in a wheelchair, @hotmail.com.
Yeah, and my email, lucy@soberistas.com. So if you've got anything else that you want to follow up after tonight's webinar, then just email either Carrie or me, and we'll get back to you in the next few days. And I hope that was helpful, and I hope you all had a lovely August and are ready for autumn, and see it as a new start. I always get quite excited in September, like going to get my new stationery and a new term starts. It's still stuck in my head going back to school. So yeah, see it as a nice new start, and keep in touch with everybody on Soberistas, and we'll get through it together. And well done again to our winner, who I will be contacting shortly, and we'll get you organised with your Virgin Experience Days prize. So thank you very much. Thanks ever so much to Carrie, and we'll see you soon. Okay, bye.